Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and on this episode we're going to do It Came From the Network. If you're not familiar with It Came From the Network, this is where we reveal the weird, wacky, bad, and sometimes just downright forgettable stuff you can find on the WWE Network from the history of wrestling. On this episode, we're going to review WCW Great American Bash 1999 from 20 years ago this month. So let's jump right into it. First off, we see the show begin with Curt, Hennig, and the No Limit Soldiers, who were Master P and some people, some wrestler friends of his bodyguard and such. And this was the beginning of the rap versus country battle they had going on with Curt Hennig representing the West Texas Rednecks. Made the song Rap is Crap, which, if you're not familiar with that, write it down after this video, go look that up, it's hilarious. Then they do a little thing. Hennig says he's a big fan of Master P, asks him to autograph his CD, which P does. He takes the CD after Master P autographs it and crushes it. Kind of a neat little thing to start the show off. Curt Hennig is pretty good. He's pretty solid. Always entertaining. A guy that you could put he's a utility knife kind of guy where you could put him anywhere on the card, give him anything, and he's going to make it work. So coming off of that, we go into our actual first match of the card. Now, if you haven't seen my reviews before, I rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. First match of the evening, we have Hack, who used to be the Sandman, with his, girlfriend at the time, Chastity. I don't remember what they were billing her as. Versus Brian Knobbs with Jimmy Hart in a hardcore match. The thing that happened when ECW took off is both WWF at the time and WCW tried to emulate them and make hardcore divisions. Some success came out of it. Guys like Bob Holly fit in the hardcore division like a glove. Guys like Al Snow. On the WCW end, it wasn't as good. And here we had a watered-down version of the Sandman, and they took away everything that made him special. They took away the entrance. They took away his name, which, from what I understand, he chose Hack, so that's what he actually likes to go by. So, I hate the name, but it is silly. And this was a match like we've seen a couple years before. I had mentioned this when I reviewed one of the Uncensored shows, where the Nasty Boys, they were kind of the hardcore tag team before hardcore took off. However, their style of hardcore was hardcore for 80s wrestling, if you know what I mean. It was still behind the times. In this match, it never connected to me. Hack picked up the win on it. Afterwards, we see Hugh Morris come down, and basically Jimmy Hart's reforming the First Family. I gotta give this match a 1. I just didn't like it. And I'm a huge Sandman fan. I love the Sandman, and I know he's not the greatest wrestler in the world, but this wasn't even entertaining, so I don't know what to say. And I do find some matches of Sandman's entertaining. I do find him to be a captivating character. Next up, we have Van Hammer, who's kind of being repackaged after being in the Flock, versus Mikey Whipwreck, another ECW alumnus, a former ECW champion as well. Triple Crown winner in ECW TV, Tag Team, and World Champion. And this was just basically a glorified squash match. This was a long squash. Hammer controlled the majority of the match, probably 85-90% of the match. Van Hammer, to me, he had a good look to him. He looked like he should be a star. He never really connected with the fans in any kind of meaningful way. His best run was probably as part of the flock, where he can be, a second or third fiddle to Raven. Just, to me, and I'm sure the guy's a nice guy, and this is no knock on him as a person, but he just didn't deserve to win this in the way he did. And I know they were trying to re-push him and repackage him, but this match, it just wasn't good. And I got to give this match again. Van Hammer picks up the win, obviously. I give this match a 1. Next up, we have Buff Bagwell versus Disco Inferno. This match started off okay, and these are two guys when I seen this match come up, because I had forgot most of this card. I mean, the last time I seen it was 20 years ago. I haven't watched this since the show started, and when we get to the end, you'll understand why. It's not something with anything historically significant that you'd want to go back to. So, seeing this, I was a little happy to see this, because I thought, okay, alright, after those first couple matches were stinkers, maybe this one will be good. And it failed to meet up any standards. Buff is someone who I kind of think his ego and him thinking he was better than he is kind of muddies what people think of him. I thought he was a solid wrestler. I think he had a great gimmick. I thought he worked. I thought he was someone that could have been a big star. Disco, again, other than the silly gimmick, he was perfect for the undercard, for the lower card matches. I mean, he was a great wrestler for their TV title. So these guys going at it thought would have a good match. It kind of fell flat here, though. I don't know what the situation was. I know a lot of times in WCW, towards the end, Buff was injured. But for whatever reason, it just didn't connect with these two. It ends with Buff basically botching a blockbuster. He doesn't even really grab him when he flips over, but Disco, of course, goes with it because he's a consummate professional. Buff picks up the win. I give the match a 1. Again, 3 matches in a row that I could not find anything redeemable about, that I didn't like anything on, basically. The show's starting off very badly to me. Now, next up, again, my hopes got up for this. The No Limit Soldiers, represented by Konnan and Rey Mysterio. And if you haven't seen Rey without his mask, in 3, 2, 1, that's it. A spoiler. Sorry, I should have said spoiler first, so let me do that again. If you haven't seen Rey without his mask, and I know I just said this, I'm going to show you a spoiler in 3, 2, 1. There you go. There he is. And you can open your eyes back now or uncover your eyes. This was a time in WCW where they decided to unmask a bunch of the luchadors, Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis, Rey Mysterio, and I think they may have even did a couple more, but I don't remember just off the top of my head. For no other reason, just to do it because they can. And Konnan and Rey, they were in a match against the West Texas Redneck group of Curt, Hennig, and Bobby Duncombe Jr., who Bobby the Brain Heenan reminds us he used to manage Hennig, and he managed Duncombe's dad, which is a kind of cool little tidbit for him to say on commentary. This match should have been better than it was. Konnan and Rey, I think, are great wrestlers. Hennig, I just spoke about it earlier. I think is a great wrestler. Bobby Duncombe Jr., I thought, was an underrated wrestler that never quite got to make it to where he was going to go before he passed away, unfortunately. Again, another match that just didn't connect to me. A little bit better than the first 3 matches. I'm going to give the match a 2. Konnan and Rey pick up the win. Afterwards, we see Barry Windham and Swole Master P's bodyguard get into it. The No Limit faction, the No Limit Soldiers, and Master P get ushered out of the building by security, who allows, for some reason, Barry Windham, Duncombe, and Hennig to 3-on-2 beat up Mysterio and Konnan. So I don't know what the logic was there. WCW. That's all you can say about that. And next up, we got a match that was promoted as and talked about as the Cat versus Scott Norton. However, we got the Cat versus Horace Hogan. And it was never said why the switch happened, if Norton was injured, if whatever reason, for NWO reasons, they decided Horace was a better person for this match. But I can't imagine it was for the reason that they thought it would be a better matchup, because this match was god-awful terrible. Again, we're going back after having a match that was a little bit better. We're sliding right back into the doldrums here. The Cat picks up the win. I gotta give this match a 1. Ernest the Cat Miller, I like him. Horace Hogan, he was a serviceable wrestler. I would have liked to see Scott Norton here more. I'm a bigger fan of Scott Norton than Horace Hogan, and I think he would have had a better match with Ernest. Again, it just failed. This is just another match that didn't connect. WCW was trying too hard to copy WWE and copy ECW without doing their own thing, and it came off as such. And a lot of reasons why these matches on these cards feel this way is because they came off as being low rent, as being a knockoff. And that's the vibe I got from this, unfortunately. And again, another sad match that I was disappointed with. Next up, we had one that should have been guaranteed to make me happy. Ric Flair with Arn Anderson in Asia versus Roddy Piper, who, this is for control of WCW, I believe. They kind of said that, but didn't really explain it much on the commentary. This is an okay match by Piper standards. If you remember watching Piper post the backlot brawl with Goldust, anything pretty much after that point in his career, his injuries caught up to him too bad. He was a shell of his former self. Ric Flair was still Ric Flair. Ric Flair, till he retired, was the greatest wrestler of all time, and he could pull off a decent match with anybody. Unfortunately, this is one of the rare occurrences where Flair didn't pull off a decent match with somebody, and unfortunately, it's with his good friend Ric Flair. After we see Arn Anderson in Asia interfering a lot in the match, Buff Bagwell comes out to pretty much even up the odds, causing Piper to get disqualified, and then for reasons WCW, they turn on Buff, and Piper and Arn and Flair beat Buff up. So, who knows? Like I said, WCW made a lot of weird decisions, a lot of quick turns and swerves just for the sake of doing quick turns and swerves, and this was another fucking example of that. The match itself, I give it 2. Again, you hear Ric Flair versus Roddy Piper, you expect greatness, and this fell well short of that, sadly. Now, coming from that, our next match is the dog-faced gremlin Rick Steiner, who had recently turned heel, versus Sting in a Falls Count Anywhere match. I was liking this match. I was liking where it was going. I thought it was a good, solid match. Thought it was a good hardcore match. Thought it was a good Falls Count Anywhere match. I thought there was a lot of redeemable qualities to it. Then we get to the end, and Sting and Rick Steiner wrestle to the back, which we see Tank Abbott and Scott Steiner join into the attack on Sting. Scott Steiner lets loose some dogs who attack Sting. We cut away from it, go back to Rick walking to the ring, which they announce Rick is the winner. No one's seen him pin Scott, or no one's seen him pin Sting. No one's seen Sting quit. I guess dogs attacking you is a valid reason to win in WCW. Again, WCW being WCW. You wonder why a company that was super hot in 96, 97, and into 98 fell off so quickly. Watch shows like this and you'll see exactly why they couldn't keep up the pace that they had beforehand. That they were pretty much, they dominated WWE for over a year, and even after and before, they were on par or better than WWE a lot of times. And this, unfortunately, again, another example of why WCW started failing at the end. I give the match a 2. Rick Steiner, like I said, picked up the win for reasons, again, I don't know. Trying to make sense out of Russo era WCW is like trying to find a grain of salt that's been thrown into the ocean. It's never going to happen. Next up, we have for the Tag Team Championships, DDP and Kanyon representing the New Jersey Triad versus Perry Saturn and Chris Benoit. And I know I mention this every time we get here. Unfortunately, going back and reviewing stuff of his era, we are going to have Chris Benoit matches. I'm not going to address the elephant in the room. I'm going to take it for what it is, a Chris Benoit match. I go back and forth with this. At times, I could separate myself and watch him as just a wrestler. And there's other times where I watch him and I'm totally disgusted because we have a guy that committed 2 murders and killed himself. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about that part of it, but for people that are new to the show and see this for the first time, I don't condone anything. I don't want to glorify Chris Benoit. I was a big fan of Chris Benoit. I loved him as a wrestler. I thought he was one of the best wrestlers in the world. I can't wrap my head around what he did. The guy, there's no way, no two ways around it. The guy was a murderer. And it's hard watching his matches subjectively at times. This one, being a tag team match and having other people involved that I liked, I love Kanyon, love DDP, love Saturn, it made it a little easier. The match itself was pretty solid, really solid match. Actually, the best match on the card, of course. Look at the 4 guys involved, just talent-wise. The Triad had Bam Bam Bigelow helping a little bit, which brought out Dean Malenko to even the odds on the other side. DDP and Kanyon pick up the win and pick up the championship here. Malenko actually caused more of a distraction than he did of a help. So, again, for Russo reasons or WCW reasons, it got overbooked and overconvoluted, and what could have been a 4 or 5 match ended up being a 3. Like I said, DDP and Kanyon pick up the win the tag team championships. Again, leaving alone the Benoit aspect, the fact that you had 4 of the best wrestlers in the world at the time and probably 4 of the most over wrestlers in the company, and that's what you come up with. I don't get it. I really don't. Another shining example of why WCW was failing. And I hate to be this negative, and I don't want it to come off like I'm being super negative and I'm being hypercritical of this, but the more I watch, the more it just piles, like, why was this so badly done when just 2 years ago the company was booked fantastically and most things made sense, and it baffles me. It really does baffle me. Finally, we get to the main event of the evening for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Kevin Nash versus Macho Man Randy Savage. And this is the era that Macho Man had his Team Madness with him, which was Gorgeous George, Medusa, and Miss Madness 1999, who ended up becoming Molly Holly later on in life. This is the famous match that played off of the angle with the white Hummer where Nash got hit in the limo with the white Hummer, and they teased who the driver was going to be, but never actually really revealed who it was. This match was okay. It was better than I expected it to be, especially on the card that it was on. Randy Savage is a master. He's one of the greats of all time. Kevin Nash, towards the end of WCW, it seemed that the knee injuries were bothering him a lot, and he wasn't having the good matches he had coming into WCW. And this is one of, it wasn't a great match to be said. It was a good match for this card, but not a great match overall. We see Nash pick up at the win at the end by a DQ because Sid comes down and joins Team Madness. So again, at Great American Bash, arguably your second biggest pay-per-view of the year, the equivalent of what SummerSlam is to WWE, you have the main event end in a DQ. So overall, I give that match a 2. And just to go through this, first match of the night, it was a hardcore match that ended with a run-in afterwards. Second match was a squash match. Third match, we had a botched move in to end the match. Fourth match, run-ins all over the place. Fifth match, a wrestler got switched out with Scott Norton, who was advertised for Horace Hogan, and they never explained why. Sixth match, we had run-ins between Asia, Arn Anderson, and Buff Bagwell. Ends in a DQ. Seventh match, we had run-ins with Scott Steiner, Tank Abbott, and a dog attack. Eighth match, we had Bam Bam and Dean Malenko getting involved. And the final match of the evening, we got Team Madness and Sid Vicious getting involved. You can see where it was overbooked and overdone, and everything on the show just felt like overdid. Like they overthought themselves. They tried to be smarter than what they should have been. Keep it simple, stupid, is always a good rule to live by. And it was too convoluted, too much, especially watching it now 20 years later in context. It's not a good show. It's not something I would recommend. Now, coming off of that, we're going to do the ratings for the show. Much like I did for the matches, I have a 1 to 5 scale for the ratings overall, except for we add a little bit of a flair, a little pizzazz to it. A 1's a gobbledygooker, a 2's a Dungeon of Doom, a 3's a Shane Hurricane Helms, 4 is a Goldust, and 5 is a Kane. I'm going to give this match a 1, a gobbledygooker. There are some matches, there's several 2 matches I rated 2 and one that I rated a 3 here. However, the overall product and how it drew me down, and it didn't do anything for me at all. There was nothing redeeming about this other than it's the start of the rap versus country feud, and it's got the White Hummer angle, which is one of the stupidest angles that's ever been done in wrestling. Nothing really memorable happened on this show, and nothing that I remembered 20 years later happened on the show. I mean, this is a totally forgettable pay-per-view for one of the flagship shows of WCW all the way back to the Crockett days, and they just crapped the bed with it. Like I said, I'm giving it a 1 overall. But basically, that's what I have to say on that. My name is George Coles, and this has been my review of the Great American Bash 1999.